This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 249 of the Stable Scoop radio show on the Horse Radio Network. A sack of mares and foals. Please support our sponsors as they make this show possible. Our sponsors this week are Kentucky Performance Products. You can visit them at kppusa.com. And Horse Quencher. You can find them at horsequencher.com.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They'll bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for the Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. The Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
This is Glenn the Geek.
And this is Coach Jen, and you're listening to Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
Well, howdy, Jennifer.
Hey, long time no see. How you been?
Since about 2 minutes ago when I closed my door. Well, Jennifer, as you know...
Can I get a door, please? I can't close my door.
Jennifer, as you know, is the host of Horse Tip Daily and producer of the morning show at Horses in the Morning, and is filling in for Helena today, who had to run off. She had an appointment this morning.
She ran screaming from her room. No.
That's right. But before we get into the show, we have a couple of guests lined up for today and some good information for you. But before we get into that, we're recording this on Tuesday morning, and we just want to give our best to everybody out in the Midwest and Oklahoma. Actually, Jamie, the host of the morning show, her in-laws live in Norman, Oklahoma, which is just south of where the tornadoes hit. Mm-hmm. And they are fine. They were in their shelter, and they are fine, although she told us that some of their neighbors don't have shelters, and they come over, and they had 17 people in this little 6x8 shelter. So,
Yeesh.
But everybody was okay, and if
that gives a new take on safety in numbers.
Yeah, and there were stories of some of the people who had underground shelters that the doors were ripped off, and but they were glad they had them yesterday and out there. And our best to everybody. There were a lot of people hurt and injured and killed, and also horses and animals of all sorts. So our thoughts and prayers to everybody out there. I know we have a lot of listeners in that area, so we're thinking the best for them. Well, today we are going to go on with the show. We have planned today a couple of interviews that you set up, actually, Jennifer. So it's convenient that you're actually going to be on the show today.
Yeah, I've been a busy camper.
Alan, is it Jewel, you think?
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Jewel, Juell, and he goes by Andy. So he does, yes.
How do you get Andy out of Alan?
We'll have to ask him.
And judging by the emails you've sent me about the conversations and his book cover, I think that this is going to be a lively conversation.
Yeah, we're going to sit back and relax.
This is what his book is called, Mares, Foals, and Ferraris, and he says... It says one of the descriptions was currently available through Amazon.com or any retail book outlet, horsetrionics.com to be up shortly. I guess that's another book he's doing. We'll have to ask him about that. It says alfalfa flavored and semi-edible in a desperate moment. So that's about his book. But we're going to be talking to him about mares, foals, and Ferraris and his life. He sounds like he's had a fascinating life, and he's a fascinating guy. So we're going to talk to him a lot about that. I'm sure we'll get some stories out of him. And the next up is one of our listeners recommended this, didn't they, for our Attack and Habit segment today?
Absolutely. I really can't take credit for this one. I sent the emails, but one of our listeners over on the Horses in the Morning show, Colleen, turned us on to this lady by the name of Teresa King, and she has a little company called Upcycled Sacks. Is that right?
Yeah, Upcycled Sacks.
And it's upcycledsacks.com.
It's not a sexy name, I have to say, by the way.
I thought it was kind of clever. But she takes feed bags, and most of us are familiar with the newfangled feed bags they use nowadays, are not made of paper anymore. They're made of this stuff that's sort of, it almost reminds you of a blue tarp that you would cover something up with.
It's kind of plasticky.
Yeah, and you'll note that many of the feed companies put beautiful graphics on the front. It's all about shelf space. They have beautiful pictures of horses and pretty colors. And she takes these sacks and makes them into useful containment devices for all sorts of things. Everything's from wallets to shopping bags to take to the market with you to messenger bags that you might put your laptop in. And I'm very excited to talk to her later on in the show today. And I'm hoping that if I'm extra super nice to her, she'll get me one of those sacks because they're really cool.
And, this is a fascinating woman, too. I mean, she was a high-powered executive and now lives on this farm. And where is she at? She's in, she moved to, Aiken, South Carolina. And she's got a menagerie of animals and went into this business using recycled products. So I'm sure we're going to get some stories from her, too. So
she's got horse-eating turkeys from another planet.
And she's a fox hunter and has done jumpers and also is a polo player. So she has done a little bit of everything, and we're gonna chat with her about that. Before we get to our first guest today, and his name is Alan Jewell. Tell us about one of our sponsors that our horse speaker really loves, and that's Horse Quencher.
Yeah, we love Horse Quencher. Beaker has a big yellow bag of Horse Quencher out there in the feed room, and Horse Quencher is one of those products that you do not realize you need it until you have it. It's kind of like the iPhone that way. You didn't know you wanted an iPhone until you got one and said, oh my God, how do I live without it? And it is, I call it Kool-Aid for horses. It is not an electrolyte. It is not designed specifically to replace the electrolytes in your horse's system, although it does contain electrolytes. It's designed to add a flavor and texture to the water when you put it in there so that your horse drinks the water. So you can lead a horse to water, and the folks at Horse Quencher can make them drink.
And Beaker never liked to drink water when he'd go away, even for trail rides that were a couple hours. He'd come back and he would drink.
That's important because whenever we go out, it's generally hot. We live in Florida. And by the time we trailer to the trailhead, ride all afternoon, and then ride back and all that, it would be 5, 6, 7 hours of very warm weather, even though he wasn't sweating a lot, that he had no water intake. So for my own peace of mind and his health, it was very important that he drank at least something. And this was very effective. Using electrolytes in feed is not an option for him. He does not get grain for health reasons. And this is fantastic. I put the measured amount into a little bucket of water, fill it up, stir it around for about 10 seconds, and he dives right in there and sucks it dry.
He hears you coming with that bag, and he comes over. I mean, he wants his water.
He thinks he's getting grain. He behaves the same way as most horses would when you rattle a pail of feed. His little ears prick up, and he nickers, and he says, "Give it to me now." So he loves his Horse Quencher. It's a very effective product.
And every horse, even good drinkers, go through spells, whether they're not feeling well or whatever it is when they're traveling, that they aren't drinking enough. Well, you can solve that by keeping some Horse Quencher around at all times. And
that's right.
Yep. So you will find them at horsequencher.com. Take a look for them at your local tack shop or feed store as well. horsequencher.com. Well, our first guest here, his name is Alan Jewell. He, according to his bio, he's done a little bit of everything. He's a writer. He's traveled. He's worked as a farrier, a farm manager. He wandered. He says wandering most of the world's habitable continents and questionable bars. He holds a degree in history and sometimes attempts to further confuse the world's problems. So he's just a guy who obviously has a sense of humor. Oh, and he was a bus driver before he went to work on the farm as well. But this book, Mares, Foals, and Ferraris, we're going to find out what it's all about with the author of that book, Alan Jewell. Well, hi, Andy, and welcome to the Stable Scoop Show.
Well, nice to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you on today. When I read the back cover of the book, first of all, it made me want to buy the book. That's the first thing. And, of course, the book is called Mares, Foals, and Ferraris. But before we get to that, you had led a very interesting life. I thought Jennifer and I had done a few things in life, but nothing compared to you. I love the one description on the back of on your bio that says wandering most of the world's habitable continents and questionable bars. So you've gotten around a little, huh?
Yes, I have. It was pretty much in one place until about 1988. I managed a thoroughbred farm up in Washington, Seattle area, and also had a business as a farrier. And I had an accident in, about 88. There was spinal surgery and some different things. But it was the end of both of those in the short term. And I'd always been a writer of sorts. I wrote my first book when I was 8, and no, it wasn't a bestseller. And so it was sort of a point in life where if there's things you want to do, you better do them, because to start another career and to head off in some direction, your dreams generally get put to the side. And so basically I sold out everything. I bought a motor home and I hit the road, not knowing where exactly I was going or what, but I was going to write. And I set up a number of contracts and obligations and things with different magazines, and I just began traveling, first up and down the West Coast, then further east, and then finally it took me overseas quite a bit. And at that time in publishing, you could do quite a bit in freelance and sort of stay alive. You weren't going to, you weren't going to be buying a Lexus, but you could stay on the road and do what you wanted to do. And that's kind of how it began.
Yeah, because you wrote for many magazines: Washington Thoroughbred, Equus, Chronicle, The Horse, Western Horseman, Thoroughbred Times. Yeah.
Yes, quite a few, actually. It was a different marketplace back then, really. It was...
when you could actually make money doing it.
Well, yes, and it was not really pre-internet, but it was pre-internet everything. And so, yes, newspapers and magazines were hungry for copy. And I tended to always sort of look at the odd stories. They all had a horse in them, but in many cases, I'd be looking for the odd angles of things.
Is that just your personality, or...?
Yes, some could call it a defect, but yes.
We didn't say it was not a defect, did we? We did not say.
I think you and I have the same defect.
Well, yes, because, to me it's, there's 100 ways to write about dressage, or there's this and that, but there's always a little sidebar going on in things. And those were the kind of stories that I would seek out. But then again, I'd have to do a lot of straight reporting, especially for the Chronicle and other things, to sort of keep gas in the tank. But I would plan it ahead to try to find these other stories that were out there. And it was a lot of fun. Huh. And then they got really interesting when I started going overseas, because from the time I was a child, I guess, I was always a closet geographer. I was in love with maps and other places, and perhaps a bit of an escapist.
Well, now, what brought you back to you're in the Northwest, right? What brought you back to the Northwest?
I think California just lost its charm. But partly, too, I had some continuing health issues, and in California, it just became distracting to me. I had a second book I wanted to finish, so I decided to come up I'm up in Port Orford, Oregon, which is almost like living on Mars, but...
Well, thus the lack of distractions, because there's nothing there! Is that it? Is that kind of how it works?
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
And so we've got the second book. It's at the publishers now, and it's a novel. And so that should be coming out in about July or so, but I just needed I'm a very restless person. I have no cement in my shoes, and so... I should probably be fitted with a shock collar if I was ever in a situation where I needed to stay somewhere.
No. We don't buy into the whole shock collar thing. We'll find you a trainer with a clicker and a treat pouch. We're going to go with that.
Okay.
That's what Jennifer did with me, Andy.
I like the treat pouch.
Yeah, that's what works for me too. Yeah, here's a piece of chocolate. You sit and stay and work for another hour.
Sure, you use smoked oysters and brie or something, and I'll stick around. But
now you were, before you went on the great adventure, you said you were in thoroughbreds. You got back into thoroughbreds then?
Well, no, but thoroughbreds have always been my love. I've been away from horses completely for about 6, 7 years. And it's kind of where I began. And the book explains a little bit of my convoluted history.
Okay, let's get to the book. Is it an autobiography or just a loose autobiography?
I'd say it's a loose autobiography.
Okay.
I put the book out as fiction because quite a bit of it is, but then, I often wonder if there is any real fiction, because really what we create comes out of our own experiences and our own consciousness, really. But there was a couple things I wanted to do with the book in the beginning. One, it's a serialization of the original columns, but I put in a running storyline. But the other thing I wanted to talk about in it was why kids run away to live with animals. And it's kind of a touchy subject in some ways, but I've seen it so much out there, and it's a lot basically my own story as well. That's basically the undercurrent that's running through it. Because I know later in my life I ran into so many kids in the show world and other areas too that had basically lost trust in humans. And the road back to trust happened to have 4 legs and a tail. And I thought it was a story that needed to be told. So
in your story, Mares, Foals, and Ferraris, is this more of is the plot entirely about the who, what, where, why, and when of this person, their journey, or is there an underlying whodunit factor?
No, I'd say it's more of an underlying story of. I had a very unusual childhood, and that's probably putting it mildly. But it's basically is more of a journey back to try to get back to a point of trust with humans. And it sounds kind of strange coming from an adult, but we were all kids once, and we all remain those kids inside of us somewhere. And,
some of us more so than others. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. And, for a child, broken trust is a big deal, because we are in a world of giants when we're kids, and we are at the whim of those giants. And it's not meant to condemn any actions or anything, but to explain how you can go from feeling the victim to understanding that it was just mere circumstances. Mm-hmm. And the horses played a big role in that for me. And I'm sure it has for other kids, too. I've met many kids on the road over the years that I've talked with and told me stories and explained why they are in the world they are now. Uh-huh. So it's kind of a salute, too, to the horse world for creating this environment. A lot of people look at it so often, the money, the egos, this and that and the other thing. But, I wrote a piece in the Chronicle, I think in 88, that dealt with the notion of trainers as far more than just trainers.
Well, we always joke. We joke about them also being babysitters and guardians and mom and dad. And Jennifer and I had a big boarding stable for a long time, and those teenagers pretty much were our kids, because they got dropped off and left there from the time they got off of school till they went home at dark. So we know exactly what you're talking about, because those kids grew up with us, and we still talk to a lot of them today. Yeah,
and it's amazing.
20 years later.
Some of those kids were 35 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's often overlooked in the horse world that, there's a lot of mentorship that goes on. And, the idea of, and it forces a kid, too, to step outside of themselves. They now have to be responsible for this animal, and it sort of takes them out of themselves. I think it's kind of a wonderful thing, and that part's just, not often talked about.
Well, that's been a big discussion.
So I really wanted to...
Oh, sorry, Andy.
Yeah, I really wanted to have a little fun with this book. There's a lot of humor in it, but I also wanted to tell that underlying story in a way that was not vindictive or whiny. I guess is the best word I could say.
Well, humor can couch a lot of things, which is the better way to go, I think, and still get the message across. What? Because nobody wants to be preached to either. So
not at all.
That's where I think humor can help. It can help you preach in a way that people aren't feeling like they've been beat over the head. Getting back to the teens topic there, what we were just talking about. So many of the Olympic old timers now, we've had this discussion on the air here with several of them about how they feel that kids are getting away from that a little bit. They're being dropped off, and instead of being at the barn from time school ends till dark, they're being dropped off for their hour lesson. The horse is tacked up. They get on the horse. They get off the horse, and they go home. It's more like a swim lesson. And they're losing that time with the horse that what you're talking about. One is the escapism and also the healing time. And they don't get those horsemanship skills that they did in the past. And I'm sure you have seen that through the time because you covered this topic for such a long time.
Yes. Well, there seems to be a lot more competition for, say, a child's time. You want to combine the horse with the swimming lessons or the soccer or, many other things like that. A lot of the kids I saw on the road and at the barn, especially the show barns and stuff, who were kids that, they might have a school horse or something that they could, maybe take to a small show, but they worked a lot at the barns too. I really think that it's much more, I think it's, like you say, the time spent with the horse, away, from the lessons and everything else, is a huge part of it. That's part of the relationship that goes on between the horse and the child. Part of it, I think, is that, the horse has always come out of the expendable income side of things. And I think there's been a lot of constraints on that. It seems that, actually the upper level of showing right now seems to be growing, expanding rather well. And
so is the next book about horses too, or is the one that's in the hopper right now, is that about horses too?
Well, yes. There's always, no matter what I do, there always seems to be a horse standing nearby. That's the thing. Yes, it's called The Littlest Racehorse, and it, like I said, it's a novel, but it is set in 1962 in late October. The week of the Cuban Missile Crisis, which actually that played quite a role in my life. I was about 10 at that time, I think, and one of my characters in it is of the same age. And it's basically based on the notion that of losses and gains, of course. But that was, in our history, that was the point where tomorrow was no longer there. It was no longer on the schedule. Many people, especially young people, don't know about that, or maybe they've studied in school. But it was really truly a case of where the nuclear clock was at 1 minute to midnight.
Yeah, Jennifer and I are 50 years old, and we certainly, grew up with that too through the late 60s and the 70s when we were in school, still being talked to about what to do, like there was anything you could do.
That's just it. There was this crazy naivety about the whole thing that one of my images from a kid was a dentist's office. And I wrote a short story about that years ago. But across the street there was a grocery store like a Safeway or something where they sold patio furniture and different things. And next to the patio furniture were fallout shelters that they were selling. And to me, that was kind of the...
Made of plastic and...
Yeah, it was kind of the metaphor of the mentality at the time. Like, your parents assumed you're being terrified in school by the 12-mile radius and this, that, and the other thing. And yet there was this other element where your parents were kind of like, oh, we'll just sweep up the radioactive stuff and you'll have to go to school next week. And that was kind of the mentality at the time.
Go out and play.
So, I decided to base the novel on the events of that week and how it changed all these various lives and led to all these decisions of all the people in it.
Where can people buy the first book, Mares, Foals, and Ferraris?
Oh, pretty much You can order it on my site at horstrionics.blogspot.com or really any of the outlets. You just need the author or the title or the ISBN number. So it's everywhere, like Barnes & Noble and Amazon.
We'll post a link to that on our Facebook page as well as our show notes over at stablescoop.com. And Andy, we thank you so much for joining us. Will you come back when the new one comes out?
Certainly.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
Commercial feeds are fortified with nutrients such as proteins, vitamins, and minerals. They are made up of a variety of ingredients that provide a particular amount of energy. Most feeds have been designed to address the needs of a certain type of horse. It is important to understand that all feeds are formulated by nutritionists to be fed in specific amounts. When the correct amount of feed is provided, the horse consumes the appropriate amount of energy and nutrients. The feeding directions included on the feed bag or the feed tag are specific to the particular feed and should be followed. When you feed less than the recommended amount of feed, your horse is not getting the full complement of nutrients that he or she may need. On the other hand, too much of a good thing can also be bad. The overfeeding of concentrates can lead to grain overload and oversupplementation, and feed should never be cut or mixed with other fortified feeds or plain grains because this changes the nutrient profile and can cause imbalances in energy, protein, vitamins, and minerals. If you need to include additional supplements in your horse's diet, choose products that are formulated to complement, not compete with fortified feeds. If you feed a plain grain such as oats, additional fortification may be necessary. Kentucky Performance Products supplements are specifically designed to complement, not compete with, the modern concentrates used by today's horse owners. Each supplement is manufactured to exacting standards in certified facilities using stringent quality control guidelines. So choose Kentucky Performance Products supplements because the horse that matters to you matters to them. Learn more about Kentucky Performance Products supplements at kppusa.com. That's kppusa.com.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com. Well, we thank Kentucky Performance Products for their continuing support of the Stable Scoop radio show. And now it's time for Tack and Habit.
And at this time, we are very pleased to welcome to the show Teresa King, the brains behind UpcycledSacks.com. If you are a bag crazy person like I am, and you also think that reusing all of those thousands of feed sacks sitting around the barn is a great idea, you're going to want to listen in to what Teresa King is up to. And welcome to the show, Teresa. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, as we had mentioned earlier, one of our listeners, Colleen, had turned you on to us here at Stable Scoop. And I want to start out with Teresa King pre-upcycled bags, because your journey to get to recycled bags all by itself is an interesting story.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well, where would you like me to start?
Well, yeah, I mean, you were an executive and, you worked in Washington, D.C. for a while. And but you were Series 7 investment banking, which I did, by the way, for a number of years.
Explain to everybody else in the world what the heck a Series 7 banking blah, blah, blah is. It's high stress and requires a tie, right?
Well, I used to work for some boutique investment banking firms, and I did very early stage capital raising. So before companies were, most of the time before they were profitable, but they needed to get to the next level, they would come to us. We would help them tweak their plan and take them out, mostly to venture investors, although we did do, and so venture capital, although we did do some private investors as well.
We need to talk to this lady.
Yeah, anyway.
Free profitable. That's us.
You mean you were supposed to make money in business? See, that's the part we keep forgetting.
Hey, I'm making bags.
Yeah, that's true. And raising chickens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so yeah, that's what I used to do, and I was also playing polo, and I guess when 9/11 hit, and really it was so incredibly impossible for any investors to get out of their current investments. So early stage investments were just not happening. So I just decided to take a little sabbatical, and I traveled around the world playing some polo, and ended up buying a little piece of property in Aiken, South Carolina.
Now, and you got into polo. I was just to talk about that for a minute. I mean, you got into polo, and it sounds like really semi-professionally for a while. You got into that when there aren't a whole lot of women in it at that level.
No, there's not. There are a lot more now, which is so great.
Yeah.
But there weren't as many when I first started. I started to play in 1992, and there really weren't that many. But it's an incredibly fun sport. Really, the most adrenaline rush I've ever had in my life. The best thing I've ever done on a horse.
We did an Equestrian Legends episode with Sunny Hale.
She's amazing. Yeah.
I mean, we did it with her because when I asked around the polo world, who's the woman that, truly pioneered women in polo and really took it to the next level, Sunny Hale was the one that kept coming up.
Absolutely. She's a phenomenal player and a really amazing person.
So you played polo for a number of years, and what fun is that? I mean, how cool is that? Talk about getting to see some neat places in the world.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, I got invited to play in India a couple of times, and it was an invitation from the Maharani of Jaipur, who was best friends with Jackie Kennedy, and she came to all of our games and took pictures with us, and we were pretty much treated like royalty and got to play elephant polo. I got MVP of elephant polo, which was the coolest thing in the world.
Wait a minute. You're going to have one long stick.
Yes, it was a very long stick.
Jeez.
And they actually make the elephant get down on its knees and lay down so that you can get on, and you have a driver. It's way too much fun. Oh my gosh, I've been very lucky in my life.
Driver. Oh my God.
So there's a driver, and then
driver.
You're whacking the ball.
Yeah, I might have gotten MVP because I slipped my driver some rupees, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
No alcohol involved in that game, is there?
Oh, no.
So you got tired of the rat race. You decided to run away and join the circus by way of playing polo around the world. And you exhausted yourself and decided it was time to settle down a little bit. You land in Aiken. How do you go from polo world traveler to chicken farmer and upcycled bags?
It was just one of those things. I just kind of started nesting at my farm and decided I wanted to get a few chickens. And
that's where it starts. It starts with get a few chickens.
Yeah, let's just get a few chickens.
Oh, yeah. No, it's crazy. I built a little A-frame coop, and then I built a bigger A-frame coop so big I couldn't even move it around because the idea was to build an A-frame where you could move around. And then I ended up buying a big 10 by 20 building and dividing it up into sections and putting a picket fence. I mean, it's just gone a little bit crazy.
Your chicken coop has chandeliers.
Yes, it does.
There's nothing eccentric about that. Nothing eccentric about that, is there, Teresa?
I did make it to the cover of the Aiken Standard for my chandeliers, which I was very excited about.
You're every chicken farmer's dream. It's funny. It came up on the show the one day. There is a Jennifer, I don't remember the name of it. It's on Blog Talk Radio, and you probably know it. There's a very popular podcast about chickens.
And
I think it's called the Chicken Podcast.
No, it's the Chicken Whisperer.
It's
called the Chicken Whisperer, and it's one of the most popular podcasts out there. He has tens of thousands of people that listen to him. He's the Chicken Whisperer. Yeah, you have to check that out.
Yeah, backyard chickens has become quite a phenomenon.
Well, you didn't stop there, though, did you?
No, well, once you get that sort of hatching craze, then you just want to see what else you can hatch. So I tried turkeys, and that worked out really well. And I hatched some peacocks. That worked out okay, but I've recently gotten out of the peacocks. They became a little too problematic. And I'm doing ducks now. I had some ducks hatch yesterday, in fact.
Our peacocks, did you find that we had some neighbors that had peacocks? And did you find it's just annoying?
No, they weren't really. My main problem with them was they were getting on my cars, and I kind of like everything just so, and I really don't want them scratched up, so I had to. That was getting to be a problem. And then feeding time was a problem because the peacocks would take my dog Selma's food, so I'd have to chase them away. So I'd put some food down for them so that they could eat and Selma could eat. But then if Flower, my pig, finished first, she would go take the peacock's food, and then they would go back to Selma. It just became a real problem at feeding time.
Peacocks take over the farm. That's it. They just, they're all.
And what was sad is her dog was a pit bull and wouldn't take the pig. No,
my poor dog would just stand there and be like, "Oh, you can have it. I'll get more tomorrow."
Yeah, I'm not taking that peacock on. He's nasty. Funny. All right, so how did upcycled sacks, and what is upcycled anyway?
Well, upcycled is a process of taking something that would otherwise be thrown away and turning it into a useful item.
Okay.
It's not a very well-known term, but it's starting to catch on a lot more. And upcycled sacks was, I had seen a bag that a friend of mine had shown me. It was kind of elementary compared to what I'm doing now, and but it was really interesting, and it just stuck in the back of my mind because I've sewn my whole life, and I love creative ideas. And so I had a couple of extra feed bags sitting around, and I just started playing around with them, and I showed them to a few people, and it's just sort of gone crazy from there. People seem to really like them, and it's a great way to recycle. And I try to use fabric from, I'll go to the SPCA thrift store or Goodwill, and I try to use fabric that's recycled, draperies and sheets and those kinds of things for the insides of the bags. And I'm trying to use 100% of recycled materials when I can. And it's just been a really fun venture. I started out with the tote bags, and I'm lining them with fabric and burlap, and then I've made some wine bags that have gone over really well, especially in Aiken.
I bet, yeah. So for folks who are not familiar with how these look, because as you alluded to, I have seen other people, they'll take an empty feed sack, which is made of this plastic tarp-like material, and they will sew it together into a containment device. Upcycled sacks are not that. You take very specific feed bags and you make them into a containment device with a handle, messenger bag, pocketbook, purse, but you strategically design them so that the graphics and the artwork that are on the bags is highlighted in the finished product. And you don't just use horse feed sacks. You have one here that you make from a bag that previously held pig chow.
I like the pig bag.
On the pig chow bag,
yeah.
There's a picture of course,
it's perfect for going to the market.
Little piglet, and it's freaking adorable.
Oh, thank you. I think it's all about how you cut the bags out and making them fun and interesting and really just taking something that you would have thrown away and making something really fun and cute out of it that you can use.
So the sack part, the bag part, the feed bag part is on the outside, and then you line them all so we're not getting sticky mess inside.
Right. I mean, the bags are all cleaned out before I sew them, so there's nothing icky inside them. But I just think it brings a more finished touch to the product when they've got a really pretty lining and a pocket inside. And I've just started working on a drawstring tote
Which I
In
love.
fact, I made one yesterday out of,
love.
great, thanks. Because, sometimes your bag falls over and all your stuff falls out and it drives you crazy. So I thought, well, instead of doing a zipper, which would be getting away from my recycled idea, I wanted to do a drawstring. So I took a piece of blue baling twine yesterday, and I did use a little barrel clasp closure, but I made a whole top that has a drawstring so that you can use the bag, and if it falls over, you don't care.
Yeah, I chuck
So
my.
that's another one of my ideas. Yeah.
And you line them with lovely fabrics. There's gingham, and there's some that are lined with beautiful burlap. So even though it's recycled, they're beautiful. You must have quite an inventory to draw upon because you're using all recycled. You don't just zip down to Joann Fabrics and go, I need a green gingham to go with this sow and pig chow bag.
Exactly. And I've taken over 2 of my stalls, have all my cool bags that people are dropping off and I'm picking up to recycle. So they're in 2 full stalls. One's all animals, one's all horses. So I'm having a great time.
Now, are the folks at Purina and Nutrina and Seminole and Penfield, are they giving you a kickback? Because they should be.
I wish. That's funny. Everyone always asks me, are they upset that I'm using the bags? And I talked to an attorney, and there's no copyright infringement on what I'm doing. So,
they should be thrilled. I mean, basically, they're getting free advertising. I mean, they should be thrilled.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, what do these run? I'm looking at which one? The universal totes, which would be great for going to the market, or if you're going to the farmer's market, you can put your vegetables in them and stuff. So that's that kind of tote. Those run about $37, and so what price range do you have for the different ones?
Yeah, those are $37, and then the smaller totes. I'm working on one now that's a birdseed bag that's just as cute as it can be with pink gingham fabric. So that's about the same size as the pig bag. Those run $27. The purses are $35. Wine bags are $17. And the messengers, which take forever and a day, but they're just so cool and fun, are $57.
Yeah, they look like they'd be more work. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but
they're a lot of work.
Laptop in, are they not?
Yes, they are. And I've been selling them to a lot of the horsey realtors in town who've been buying them from me, and I think I've got a craze going.
Well, now, I got to tell you, Jennifer has been pining over these since we first found out about them. She's been pining over them, but she doesn't want an autographed one by any of those. You can get them autographed, too, but, Boyd Martin and Philip Dunn, we talk to them all the time. She wants one autographed by you. So.
Well, hey, I'm all over that.
I want it autographed by the artist, so someday I can be on Antiques Roadshow.
That's right.
Perfect.
And they can say, this is one of those bags. That lady lived in Aiken, South Carolina 100 years ago. And her name was Teresa King, and she put out all these. Not many survived because they were such fragile material, and that not many of them lasted 100 years, and it's now worth $3,500.
Yeah.
See, did I do good?
Perfect. I think she had a pig named Flower.
Yeah, that's right. And some chickens. And she had a chicken house with the chandeliers. She was an eccentric woman.
She was an eccentric artist. That's right.
That's right. That's funny. Well, where can people find Upcycled Sacks? Is upcycledsacks.com, right?
That's it. And I'm also on Facebook and the name is the same, upcycledsacks.com.
Now, they truly can get some autographed ones, too. I was just joking about that from different people. What do you stock them at shows and just have them sign a whole bunch of bags?
Oh, I can't give out my secrets of how I get the autograph.
Okay.
Well, we have a lot of Olympic athletes that winter here in Aiken and also live here. So I've been lucky to be able to get some great autographs.
Yeah, and one of those, by the way, for all of the fans of polo, and even if you're not, you've seen his picture, is Brandon Phillips, who is one of the hotties in polo. So if you want one of the hottie signatures, I guess you can get one of those, too. I don't know how you know him. We won't ask. But right now, half the female population is very jealous. I'm just saying. UpcycledSacks.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we want to thank Colleen Peachy, our listener who sent us that suggestion. If you have some unique, different, unusual products that you're aware of or that you use every day and you want to let the rest of the world know about them, just drop us an email here, Glenn@horseradionetwork.com, Glenn with 2 N's, and we will be sure to get them on the line. Well, that's about it for this week, everybody. Again, we're saying prayers for everybody out there in the Midwest. Be safe again today because there are more storms predicted. And if you want to see any of the show notes from today's show with the links to all of our guests or any past guests that we've had on the show, just go to stablescoop.com. One thing we don't talk about a lot is there is a search function on there. If you want to go back and listen to a previous episode and you know the name of the guest, or you want to see if we had a certain guest on the show or search for a topic, then just use the search function. It works really well, and it'll bring up all the episodes that we had about that person or topic. And you also can find us on Facebook. Just search for Stable Scoop on Facebook. And you can find us on Twitter at Horse Radio. We want to thank our sponsors today, Horse Quencher and Kentucky Performance Products, for being part of the show. And you can visit all the other great shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com, including, this is the point where you put in a plug for your own show.
Oh, Horse Tip Daily, available daily at horsetipdaily.com.
Yes. Terrific show. Almost 800 episodes now of Horse Tip Daily?
It's perfect for people with a short attention span.
That's right. Short shows, 5-10 minutes, all kinds of good tips from anything in the horse world, from what must be a couple hundred experts now.
Yep.
So just join Jennifer over there, horsetipdaily.com. Helena will be back next week. Thank you all for joining us. And as Helena would say, she says happy scooping.
Oh, happy scooping!